yang sudah bisa hadir dalam kegiatan monthly research discussion yang diadakan PTKM secara rutin per bulan. Pada kesempatan ini nanti akan ada 3 presentasi yang akan disampaikan oleh Ibu Monika, kemudian ada Pak Budi Yuniarto dan Pak Takdir. Ketiganya kalau saya lihat hampir sama topiknya tentang big data. Monika akan sharing tentang sharing training innovation in use of data source and methodologies for SDGs. Kemudian Pak Budi Yuniarto akan mempresentasikan terkait SDGs data disaggregation using big data. Sementara Pak Takdir nanti akan menyampaikan terkait big data center, disseminating big data for citizen. Nanti pemaparan akan dilakukan secara berturut-turut, dimulai dari Bu Monika, kemudian Pak Budi Yuniarto, dan terakhir oleh Pak Takdir. Nanti ada sesi terakhir tanya jawab atau diskusi. Mungkin untuk mempersingkat waktu, saya persilahkan Bu Monika untuk mempresentasikan oleh-oleh dari Jepangnya ya, terkait training innovation in use of data source and methodologies for SDGs. Gimana Gary, udah siap itunya?
Sudah, Bu.
Sudah ya? Bang Monik udah siap itunya? Baik, silakan Bu Monika untuk menyampaikan hasil trainingnya di Jepang.
Ya, terima kasih atas kesempatannya. Jadi, judul dari training ini adalah Innovation in Use of New Data Source and Methodologies for SDG Statistics. Sebenarnya course ini di kerjasama antara JK sama SIAP gitu. Jadi kalau JK, ini nulis.
Biar videonya kita.
Oh gitu.
Diulang berarti. Kayaknya aja Pak.
Bisa dipotong kan?
Shall we start?
Ya.
Okay. Thank you for coming to this monthly discussion. Today I will present my training conducted in January 23rd up to March 9. The title of the training itself is Innovation in Use of New Data Source and Methodologies for SDG Statistics. Actually, this course conducted by JK and SIAP, they are two non-profit institutions located in Japan. JK will give the accommodation and SIAP give the training materials. But apparently JK office located in Tokyo and SIAP office located in Chiba. So that means I stay in Tokyo and the training conducted in Chiba, and that is a long commute, about 1.5 hours using public transportation, like train. So it will feels like, so I felt like a resident when I have the training in there. The course objective itself is to strengthen my capability to produce, interpret, and disseminate key official statistics, with particular focus on data and indicators for the 2030 agenda and the SDGs, through lectures, discussion, working with data, field trip, and group visits. That means that I have like project work for this at the end of the training. And the main topic of the training itself is the concept of SDGs in practice, applying new technologies on existing and new data source to compile SDGs indicators, and individual projects. That's what I'm talking about the case study of non-traditional statistical method of data collection or analysis. I will present this my individual project that I presented in Japan, and there is action plan. This action plan actually, I have to make a report for this action plan. They will be waiting for the report in September 2019, at least. And this is what I've learned. Okay. So basically, I learned about SDGs itself, I also learned about R, Python, QGIS, and KP using survey solution. The lectures are from MIC, MIC is Minister of Internal Affairs and Communication in Japan, and from World Bank, also from United Nations. So there are three institutions who give the lecture in this training. The length of the training itself is about 6 weeks. And in the 6 weeks, I have to absorb many materials, training materials like R, Python, QGIS, and KP, which is not my subject in this. Kelihatan nggak? Okay. So we have technical problem in here. We cannot display the. So I will start to present my project work that I presented in Japan. Actually, this project work I did it before I leave Jakarta. The title of my project work is The Influence of Infrastructure on Pillar Economics Development in Indonesia. So, as we know that SDGs has 17 goals, and Indonesia divided into 4 pillars, and one of the pillars is economic development. So I focus on the economic development. And the background is why I chose the infrastructure. The background is since 2015, infrastructure development has become Indonesia's government top priority. And I focus on this pillar of economic development, which includes 5 goals, where infrastructure is one of its goals. The government also has mindset that infrastructure can reduce poverty and unemployment rate. So our government think that infrastructure can reduce poverty and unemployment rate. Infrastructure development consists of, this is the concept and definition. Infrastructure development consists of managing water resource, building roads, improving the quality of settlement and housing development, aim at improving connectivity. Nggak bisa?
Yang ditampilin itu apa ini sih?
Enggak tahu.
Udah.
Yang saya.
Apa di depan? Biar ada penyanyi. Oke. Mana di depan, Pak? Ada di samping Pak.
And the purpose of this project work is to describe the infrastructure expenditure in Indonesia by province, to know the influence of infrastructure expenditure to welfare, unemployment, and poverty, and then to know the response of variables that represent the pillar economic development goal to the shock of industry, to forecast the variable that represent the pillar economic development simultaneously. The forecast is very important in here because we have to set the target for the SDGs. So I think it will be very useful to make a forecast simultaneously, since the infrastructure itself is like a catalyst in the economic development. The metadata of data source I use from 3 sources. From BPS, Ministry of Public of Works. From Ministry of Public of Works and Housing for capital expenditure in infrastructure development. This is the kind of data I use. And then from World Bank, From Ministry of Public of Work and Housing, I use GFS report, Government Financial Statement report. And the methodologies, I use disaggregation. To disaggregate, I use microdata to disaggregate into provincial level, presented with tables and graph, and I use single equation to reach my purpose of this research. And then I use simultaneous equation using VAR system. This VAR system allowed several variables to be forecasted simultaneously. So since the infrastructure is a catalyst, so it will be very useful for using these models. This is the variables. The variables I use in this research. Yeah. This one. The last column is the data source. So I get all this data from this institution. So there are infrastructure expenditure, unemployment, poverty, economic growth, population, HDI, Human Development Index, poverty gap, unemployment, industry, energy use, electric power consumption. The last three variables I use. This is they are came from the SDGs indicators and included in economic development pillars. So this is the result to disaggregate the. Sorry, it should be enlarged. Bisa dilihat sebenarnya, tapi ini nggak bisa dipilih. Ya. This one I use scatter plot infrastructure expenditure per capita income by province. The red line is the mean of so the X line is infrastructure expenditure, the horizontal line, and the vertical line is per capita GRDP, and the red line is the mean of the values. This is from 34 provinces in Indonesia. So I made into 4 quadrant 1, 2, 3, and 4. So that means if the infrastructure expenditure is above the mean, the average, and then the per capita income is above the average, then that means there is an impact of infrastructure expenditure to the welfare of the province. Like for DKI Jakarta, for example, in quadrant 1, it has infrastructure expenditure above the average, and also the per capita GRDP above the average. So that means there is an impact of infrastructure expenditure on its per capita GRDP. And the next one is this one, the scatter plot of infrastructure expenditure and number of poor by province. From the 4th quadrant shows that there are in good condition and poor condition. The poor condition means in the quadrant 3. Quadrant 3 there are 22 provinces that has infrastructure expenditure less than its the average of infrastructure expenditure in Indonesia, and then number of poor also. Quadrant 4. Quadrant 4 means the infrastructure expenditure is less than the average, and then the number of poor is above the average. That means they have those province has less infrastructure expenditure and high number of poor in their province. And this is also the scatter plot of infrastructure expenditure and unemployment rate. Let's skip. And this one is the regression model. So I use a single equation model and simultaneous equation model. The single equation model is used to show whether the infrastructure expenditure has impact to the economic variables like economic growth, unemployment, and poverty. It shows that infrastructure um, has impact only on economic growth, but not in poverty and unemployment. It shows in the tables that the stars only in economic growth, not in unemployment and poverty. So yeah, maybe there is a lack of the model because actually in infrastructure we have to use the lag time model. I already used the lag time model, but it also showed that the poverty and unemployment is not impacted by the infrastructure expenditure. And the last one is using simultaneous equation model. I use this simultaneous equation model to make forecasts and also to see the impulse response function. So impulse response function is basically about how the response of one variables if there is shock in another variables. So the model is given below. This is the FAR1 system. It includes the lag time of every variables. So we estimate the parameter of this all these equations simultaneously, and the result of the this model is not interpreted as the regression model as usual, but we have to use impulse response function. The impulse response function is presented in graph. It shows that, for example, like this one, response of industry to industry means that if the variable industry, there is shock in variable industry, then the variable industry itself will have the impact, will get the impact in the T plus 1. It means that in the next period and two periods, third period, etc. So it means that if there is shock in industry, the variable in the industrial variable itself will have positive impact for the next one period and two period, and then it has negative impact, and then at the fifth period it will stable. And this one is response of the poverty variables if there is a shock in industry. It shows that if there is shock in industry, the poverty will get higher. It shows that there is hidden fact in here. Maybe because uh, the poverty itself is associated with household, and if the industry is there is impact, there is shock in industry. It means that the rising of the industry is not from the labor absorption, but from capital. So it's not using human, but using machine. And this is the impact of sorry, the response of electric consumption due to the shock of industry. It means that if there is shock in industry, then the electricity use has in the next period will get higher, and then starting to decline below zero. It means that the rising of the industry is using low energy. So the conclusion of this project work is that infrastructure budget has positive impact to welfare, which is represented by per capita GRDP. It also has positive impact to reduce poverty and unemployment rate. Population has significantly positive impact to increase poverty, while Human Development Index has significantly positive impact to welfare. Shock in industry is responded positive by unemployment, poverty gap, probably due to the use of technology. Electric and energy have negative response. It's a signal the technology used in the future will use less energy. So the impulse response function I used before is to forecast the future, the impact. So this is the reference. That's all I can say about the project work I presented in my training in Japan. Uh, Thank you for your attention.
Okay, thank you, Mrs. Monica. Maybe we can continue to the next presentation. Will be delivered by Mr. Budi. Okay, are you ready, Mr. Budi? Please.
Okay, thank you. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good morning to everybody. Technology. So we can see that big data is not about social media. It's more broad than social media. Big data can be categorized by source. First, human source information, for example, social networks like Twitter, Facebook, and others. Second, process mediated data, example, commercial transaction. And third is machine generated data, for example, mobile phone location. Okay, types of big data. Category across data, we can see the source is mobile phone data, financial transaction, online and access logs, administrative data, citizen card, and postal data. And for category sensing data, we can have satellite and UAV imagery. Yeah, UAV. Now we talk about SDGs. Maybe some definition of SDGs Mrs. Monik has explained. So we can see this, the SDGs has stakeholder in Indonesia. There is 4 stakeholder in Indonesia. First is government and parliament. Second is academics and expert. Third is philanthropy and business, and the fourth is civil society organization, CSO, and media. This is a timeline of SDGs. We have known that SDGs is a continuation from MDGs. MDGs end in 2015. Then SDGs starts in 2015. Indonesia in 2015 is in stage of awareness and coordination. And now our position is in implementation and monitoring, evaluation, and reporting. This is the indicator mapping for national indicator. Yeah. For Indonesia, we have 319 indicator of SDGs, 85 match with global indicator. 166, it's a proxy for global indicator. 68 is additional. So we have 319 indicators in total. Data source from SDGs. For BPS, Indonesian Statistics, we have Sosenas, National Socio-Economic Survey, and we have another survey by Ministry of Health, that is Riskesdas, and other survey from BPS like Sakernas, Podes, or Supas, and administrative data from other ministry. SDGs. The tagline of SDGs is leave no one behind. So to make sure there is no one left, the data SDGs must be disaggregated by income class, by gender, by ethnicity, by geographic location, by migration status, and by disability status. So there is no one left behind. This is the example for the disaggregated data of SDGs. This is the data for information and communication technology, ICT skills, and gender parity index net for enrollment rate. The disaggregation is first for urban rural, then by sex, male, female, then by income distribution, 40% bottom and 20% upper, then by migrant status, migrant recent and non-migrant. This is another example of disaggregated data. For indicator gross enrollment rate and mean years of schooling. Disaggregated data are useful for different purposes. First is for broad monitoring. As the tagline of the SDGs is no one left behind, so we need a broad monitoring. Then resource allocation, especially for government. Then program targeting, make sure that the program has the right target. Then impact evaluation. If the program has established, how the evaluation of the program. But, however, making this aggregated data available comes with costs. For example, if we have population about 20 million people, for provincial coverage, we need 500 and 74,770 sample. What if we want to level of analysis for regency? We need more sample. If we are talking about survey, typically sample size increase by a factor equal to the desired number of analysis group. But if we want full coverage, we can conduct census. But census is a good. There are the coverage is a whole coverage, but there is limitation for census. First, timeliness. As we know, Indonesia just have census for 10 years, once in 10 years for every census. And limited info. And census, we can detail questionnaire in census. We can have detailed questionnaire in census. Then we can have a source for administrative data, but there is a limitation also about representativeness, about quality, and about accessibility. Administrative data, we have to collect from many institutions in Indonesia. Other challenge of disaggregation data of SDGs, there is much other challenge. For example, maybe first is pressure to collect more info, then potential loss of quality. If we want to push the sample big enough, maybe the quality will be less. Then confidentiality. Recently, the respondent is, many of respondent is reject to interview by BPS because they are worried about their confidentiality. Then another challenge is politics of data, even politics over data. And of course, about budget. Yeah. More sample, need more budget. How can we reconcile the need for disaggregated data and need to contain costs at manageable levels? Yeah, the alternative, maybe we can conduct a survey with comprehensive coverage. But it's very costly as it will require large sample size. Need to have sufficient sample size for each small area to be estimated. Estimates are unbiased by design. We can use various technologies, various methodologies, I mean. For example, statistical techniques using survey data, rolling approach survey, and then statistical techniques complementing survey data with auxiliary data, and maybe we can some methodology to combining for many survey and use the method of statistic matching. Yeah, maybe. But they all have limitation. One method to disaggregation data is using small area estimation technique, where small area estimation technique is combine multiple data sources to capitalize on each data source strength. Yeah, as we know, in BPS we have survey and census. A typical income consumption or living standard survey collects detailed information that can be used for estimation of our statistic of interest. It also collects other information, for example, socio-demographic data, which may be considered as correlates of our statistical interest. This survey collects rich information on various topics, but they are only reliable at survey domain level. They are depend on number of sample. Then we have census. A typical census collects basic information, for example, socio-demographic data for all units of the population. Census collects very granular data, but we can't have detailed information. It's limited topics cover. So we can combine census data and survey data using small area estimation. We can see the data requirement is survey data available for the target variable of y and for the independent variable x related to y. Auxiliary data, for example, we can use census data available for x but not for y. But census data is not only the source for auxiliary data. We can use administrative records. In other words, small area estimation borrows strength from auxiliary data through X. Choice of small area estimation method depends on availability of auxiliary data. How much auxiliary data is available, at which level is auxiliary data available. X should be time invariant. For example, sex, religion. Yeah, maybe there is a little probability sex and religion changing. Educational attainment, parental characteristic, and others. Finding auxiliary information from innovative data source. Okay, the alternative data source for auxiliary information for X in the model of small area estimation, we can use innovative data source. What is innovative data source? Innovative data source is a data that come from big data. Innovative data source, for example, satellite image, mobile phone record, social media data, and other types of big data. So we can use the big data for X. What specific type of innovative data source could we include in our poverty estimation model, for example, for our poverty estimation model? Okay, we can use, this is, I have mentioned in earlier, 3 categories of big data. This is the source for auxiliary info. Next. Okay. For proper poverty measure, for example, the use of big data for disaggregation of SDGs, especially for poverty indicator, we can use various of satellite image. The first image, this is the nighttime lights. Nighttime lights. So we can see the brightest area, that is the developed area. The dark area maybe is maybe forest, but if we overlay with the administrative border, we can identify which city is developed, which city is developing. For the second image, we can use use this image by measure the quality of building. Quality of building in the area. And for the third image, we can use the number of car. And for the fifth picture, this is about agriculture area. Okay. Now, how we extracting luminosity values from nighttime lights? Well, I will not explain the how about the technique, but I was just to show about the source of data and just give an idea. Okay, this is the world's nighttime light. So we can see how United States and Europe so bright, because they are developed country. Where is Indonesia? This is a picture of 1992. Indonesia just a little dot,
Where?
in the right
Where?
bottom right corner.
Citayam.
So by this picture, we can see that developed country has a bright nighttime lights. So we can use this nighttime satellite imagery to measure poverty. This is some example of using nighttime lights. For first example, nighttime lights as proxy measure of human well-being, or GDP, gross domestic product. This is the paper of Ghosh et al. Regression models for calibrating sum of lights to the official GDP values plus informal economy for sample administration units from the US, China, India, and Mexico. We can see the regression line. So good enough. Yes, we can see that the nighttime light can predict GDP. The second example, nighttime light as a proxy measure of human well-being. For electrification rate. Oh, it's obvious, yeah, obviously related between nighttime lights and electrification rates. You can see from the nighttime imagery, lighting from the gas flare was masked out. The location of gas flare in the density nighttime. Okay, this is the Ghosh et al. Too. Now, where we can use the source of data nighttime lights, there is some of data source to have satellite imagery about nighttime light. The first is the MSP OLS nighttime lights data. The National Center for Environmental Information (NCEI) Earth Observation Group of the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration (NOAA) specialists in nighttime observation of light and combustion source worldwide. Where we can get the data, we can download at X. Yeah, this is the link to download the nighttime light satellite imagery. The second source is VIIRS nighttime light data. VIIRS is a scanning radiometer that collects visible and infrared imagery and radiometric measurement of the land, atmosphere, cryosphere, and ocean. Where we can get the data, okay, downloadable at https://ngdc.noaa.gov. This is the source of data. But nighttime light data also have issues. First, about digital number. how to convert the picture to some digital number, to convert to digital number, about coding, then about latent sensoring in the satellite, compatibility across satellite years, maybe from year to year the satellite has been changed, so we can compare from year to year. Then about gas flare, maybe in some area there is a gas flare, so we can misidentify about nighttime lights data. Then another issue is blooming, blurring, and high latitude location. High latitude location, I don't know, maybe in high latitude the luminosity, the brightest, the light will be brighter or darker in the high latitude. I don't know. Maybe brighter, more closer to the star satellite. I don't know yet. Okay, maybe this is just give an idea for maybe for our research next using this type of big data to this aggregation of SDGs. Okay, thank you. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you, Mr. Budi. Okay, the last presentation maybe will be delivered by Mr. Takdir with topic Big Data Center, disseminating big data for citizens. Time is yours, Mr. Takdir.
Yeah, thank you, Bu Nelly. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good morning, everybody. Okay, as we can see from the title of the presentation is disseminating big data for citizens. Everywhere we heard about big data is a new oil. It means that oil is a main resources for human life. It means that government have the responsibility to distribute the oil to become accessible by the citizen. And if we say that big data is the new oil, it means that the government have the responsibility to disseminate or distribute the data to be accessible by the researchers, students, citizens, and other government agencies. And this presentation will show the innovation or the initiative from the Korean statistics that I have met the big data regional training previous weeks. They have some innovative, they call statistical big data centers to disseminate big data from various sources to be accessible by the citizens. Okay, next. This is the outline. The first one is actually understanding of big data, but I crossed that title because we can access or study this knowledge from everywhere. From the previous presentation also have explained about the big data. So I will explain about the big data practice of Korean statistics. And the second one, until the fifth one, is the actionable plan that we can do to realize the big data for official statistics. The first one is big data project, a linking database and collection aggregated data from other entities until the establishment of statistic big data center that can be accessed by the public and the government agencies. Next. This screen just show the significant increasing of the big data requirement in government and private sector from 2015 until 2016. The high demand from the public institution about 40%, and it means that big data become required by another parties in this country. Okay. And next, this is some reason why big data is required. The first one is because the traditional census and survey will be high survey cost and low respondent. This is these two problem occurs everywhere in statistic national office. The high cost of visit survey and the low response rate that we have from the respondent. And the reality is in the right top corner is the demand of user become complex. They want more data, they want detailed data, and also they want timely statistics, up-to-date data. If we conduct a survey and we provide the result in the next year or in the next 6 months, it will not become a timely statistic. And what actionable plan that core staff have done? The first one, of course, they put the regulation. So they formulate the regulation flow to access the data from many sources, from private sector and public sector. And the second one is the technological or research center to learn about the data collection techniques and big data technology. So this is two parallel activity conducted with two different teams in core staff. Next. Okay, the first one that they have to done in the core staff is reorganizing the organizational structure. As we can see that the structure is quite similar with Statistik Indonesia. There is some deputy there, and for example, economy, statistic deputy, etc. And they establish new division, big data and statistic division under Statistik Data Hub Bureau. If we compare with BPS, it equals to dissemination or disseminasi Directorate Disseminasi Statistics. And dissemination statistic there not only collect or request the data from the internal of Statistik Korea, but also pull the data in the cloud computing from administrative agency. So if BPS of Korea, Statistik Korea requests the data from the administrative agency, the data will be uploaded with some guidelines to the Statistik Data Hub. And the data will be provided to the public and the internal with some modification or some encode the identification of the personal information. That is the task, the new task of the statistical hub or dissemination division in the Statistik Korea. Okay, so there are two big there are two big categories of big data preparation. The first one is producing various statistical information, linking public and private data. So we have some data from administrative, from SIAP, from the Dukcapil, from the PGS, and we have our statistical data. We need to link their data and analyze the aggregated data from other entities and collect the data from website. Also, they do some crawling, taking the data from the website. And another one from the structural employee in the core staff, official employee, they establish legal framework. So they formulate the law that we need to access the data from another government agencies, and enhancing external cooperation from, for example, with the United States, and establishing infrastructure for data openness and sharing. So this is two kind of category of big data preparation. And what is legal framework? They modify or upgrade the statistical law, statistical act, and there is some detailed information there, including the identification guideline. How, if we get the data from administrative data, how we can make the personal private information become inaccessible by the public, but the public can get the data and make some calculation, some research there. So this is the identification guideline, personal information collected, but the address, the name, the NIK will be encoded in another format. Next. Okay, and what is a legal framework? There are a lot of legal framework actually, not only the law. Even the law is the most important. There are policy and organizational and technical. They also provide how the administrative agency can upload the data directly to the headquarters. So if we request data from the local government, they will given the guideline to upload the data to the local government. So the local government can be trust to the statistical Korea that the data set not being used by another parties. So that is the legal framework, even technical and also the law. Next, this is the example of the Statistic Act of Korea, and they have a strong rule here that in the last point, where it is necessary for the production of statistics, the Commissioner of Statistics Korea may request the Minister of Public Safety and Security to give the data. So, if necessary, head of BPS, Kepala BPS, can request the data from the administrative data. Then there is no reason for the administrative agency don't give the data to the statistical mission. Okay, that is the head of the law. Okay, next, and this is the example of the ongoing integrated database from debt. For example, the credit card data they taken from the bank. Some of private sectors sell the data, but the cost start by some of the data. Okay, to get the data, but they collect the data and link with their own survey data. And the next one, how they link the data. Maybe they have some data from survey, X, Y, and from another resource, they get X and Z, so they link the data to become a complete one, match data set. Next, and this is how they encode the data. If we have a resident registration number, for example, NIC, but the NIC converted to the irreversible number. So even the citizen can access the data, they cannot now understand or know the voice this row, irreversible number. Next. And this is another ongoing project there. They also collect the data from the telecom, the movement of citizen, and also self-employed database and public safety database from another government and private agency. Okay. So they make some coordination with another agency, and if the agency requests a law, a specific law to give the data to provide this, the privacy to avoid the distribution of private information, the Statistic Korea will establish or formulate the new law that they needed by the agency. Okay, next. And this is an example of credit card transaction data. They also get the data from the bank, and some other data they buy from the private provider of credit card. Next. And this is the example of data source that is collected from the online e-commerce and also social media. For example, the product that's sold in the e-mart and the e-commerce website, and also the social media indicator. The example is the sentiment analysis from the Twitter and blogs, news, and etc. Next, and the last, they establish a statistic big data center. It is like the library in BPS PST, but the difference is people enter the room without any devices, portable storage. The smartphone should be put in the safe place. After that, the people will enter the room and do access the private data, but with no private information, no address, no NIK, but in the encoded format. And the researcher can access the room with given some identity card. Like that. This is the big data center in Korea, and there is no photo. Next, this is the only photo that we can take because this is very private room. We cannot bring our smartphone inside the room. There is a lot of PC there. Thin client, there is no CPU, only a mouse and monitor, and all the data processing and access from the server. Okay. That's just my presentation, and all the material in this slide taken from the CoreStar regional training. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Kadir. Thanks to all the presenter. Maybe the Mary can share next. Yeah, Mrs. Monique, Mr. Budi, and Takdir can share the presentation. Okay. Okay, maybe we can continue to the discussion. I open for 3 questions. Maybe there are questions from Bapak and Ibu. Mr. Rocky, maybe you have any question? Mr. Arman, Mr. Pras, Mbak Aisyah.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you for the opportunity. Congratulations for all the presenters that already give us sharing knowledge about the experience of training that you are already done. Actually, I'm interested to all of the topic, but I have a question for Mr. Budi. It's so interested about this aggregating SDGs, or I think it can be implemented to other indicators by using big data. My question is there any statistical measurement that can represent the validity or like that? The validity of the result of this integration data. How can we use that to disaggregate them? I think that's my question. Thank you.
Okay, maybe Mr. Budi can answer it first.
Okay, thank you for the question from Mrs. Aisyah. Well, as I mentioned earlier, in our workshop, there is no discussion about the validity of disaggregated data using big data. But maybe we can develop our validation not ourselves. For the validation, we need comparison data, of course. The comparison data, maybe we can, for the developing the model, we can compare it with census data. If we have a model, then we can use the big data. For the first, we have to develop a model. We have to evaluate the validation. For the validation, maybe we need to compare it with census data for the first time. So maybe this next year, 2020, is the best time to try our big data. Because 2020 is a census year. Thank you.
maybe the problem of us that not all people can understand. Uh, yeah, especially in the statistical event, they are always asking about the validity. But okay, thank you.
Yes, that is the challenge in big data about the validation. It is questionable. It's questionable for the clear method. The clear method. It's question for some people it's questionable. Ya, apalagi big data gitu. Big data is maybe it's hard to understand for them. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Budi. Maybe there is some question from Nader, Mr. Rofi, or Trana. Do you have any question? No. Tekan?
Sudah.
Thank you for let me ask one question about the use of these big data. Pak Budi has shown the classification of the big data, but could you please show again the type of big data, the source? Okay. Yeah, I think this classification of the source of the big data only based on the type of technology. But how about the classification of the type, but not technical, but how the data is being collected? Yeah. For example, there should be some level of difference between the data which has been collected from for example, from the e-commerce and the big data has been collected from for example, from the social media. Yeah, I think that there's a big difference between the data because I think if we collect from the e-commerce, the data, the reliability, the accuracy of the data is high. I think we could depend on the data. But if the data is from the source media, the social media, it's I think the accuracy or the dependability of this data is low, like Bu Aisha said. So, is there any classification or categorization of this kind of source? Thank you.
Well, as far as I know about big data, maybe this is about definition of big data I mentioned earlier in the previous slide. That is the simple definition of big data. Plus, for the latest definition of big data is become bigger definition. For the classification of big data, as far as I know, there is for the right classification. Maybe I don't remember, but I know the big data is we can the type of big data. Maybe there is a streaming data, there is not streaming data. We even I told to the student the big data is not about social media. Big data is from other source. It can be as big data. Maybe, for example, if we we don't use technology, we can not use technology, the latest technology, we can have big data. For example, the crowdsourcing, but not using technology, it's big data too. From crowdsourcing. For classification of big data, for the latest development of big data, maybe I can mention it. Maybe Pak Takdir knows the latest classification of big data.
Ini apa colokan-colokan.
Sejak lagi.
Okay, yeah, cannot be seen in the viewer, but the course that classify big data, the big category is primary and secondary. This is the new definition or the statistical production in CORSTAT. They make a secondary, primary, similar with BPS, the primary data from statistical and the secondary data. Yeah. Secondary data can come from the public sector, government agency, Dukcapil and BPJS, public sector, and also private sector. Private sector including the social media, banking system, and private sector including the social media, credit card data. That is the second sort of data. So and two kind of data. Data can have unique identification number. For example, credit card data, their account number, and can be linked with the NIC. And some of them cannot be linked by the registration number, only by name. Okay, by name, and they also make some matching with name. With name, if there is no provided the NI card, the ID card number. So for the social media, it's quite narrow, and they even in Korea they only use the aggregate data for social media. So the e-commerce they only collect the aggregate data and disseminate the aggregate data, not for officially they disseminate the aggregate data for e-commerce crawling from the website, but for the record, the raw data, for example, Wo sell this product and Wo buy this product, they disseminate in the big data center, and big data center is not official statistics, but can be accessible by the researchers, students, and other government agencies. The raw data they collect from the social media, the raw data. They will sell this product, and this is the account. This account, how many products that have been sold by this account. This is ongoing big data initiative in CORSTAT. So they have two kind of statistic, official statistic, but another one is non-official statistic, but can be accessible by the another resources. Even they have publication in different websites for big data.
Okay, Raina, is it clear?
Yeah, not really answer my question, but yeah, okay. Maybe other.
Maybe any question from Bapak and Ibu? Still any question? If no, Dominic?
Can I have one
Okay.
more question? There is new regulation in European country which is called the Europe General Data Protection Regulation. There are some rules about how to treat the data, including the big data, in research or maybe in other usage. And one of the rules is that every citizens in European country have the right to be forgotten. I mean, if they register any kind of data in any kind of application, then any citizen have the right to be forgotten. I mean, if we maybe buy some items from any e-commerce systems, then what we have bought should maybe remain for amount of times, and then the history, we can opt to not save the history of our data. That's the rules in the new General Data Protection Regulation in European countries. So, in case of that regulation, I mean, in relation to the individual privacy or security data, I think there is need some new regulation or concern about that kind of regulation. How about in the Korean, South Korea, or maybe in the Thailand? Yeah, in the Thailand, how those countries concerned about this kind of regulation in protecting the privacy.
Mr. Bodi, can you answer?
Okay, thank you, Mr. Anand. About legal basis of big data, it's our concern in the workshop in Thailand. Some countries have legal basis. For example, Philippines. Philippines have legal basis for their National Statistical Office to collect big data. But about privacy, I don't know how they handle about privacy. For maybe for in developing country like Indonesia, Philippines, Thailand, privacy over internet is not a big issue. But in developed country, it's a big issue. For in the workshop, the ADB is pushed to all countries to have a regulation about the data. So I know, sejauh yang saya tahu. Okay, so as I know, Thailand is they are trying to create regulation, but they don't have yet. Philippines is have the regulation about big data. So I think Indonesia should have. Our law of statistics is from 1997, doesn't change to until now. Maybe it's the time to change the regulation about statistics in Indonesia. Thank you. Maybe Mr. Takdir or Mrs. Moni to add my opinion. Thank you.
In my training in Japan statistics didn't talk much about the regulation in Statistics Act, but they always said that they have some regulation for the citizen if they didn't give the data for official statistics, because statistics in Japan, they conduct like labor statistics every month, and input-output table every 5 years, and census is every 5 years, population census is every 5 years, instead of 10 years like in Indonesia. But they just talk about the Statistics Act, like if the citizen is not give the data to the government or the enumerators, then they will get fined. So that's the scary thing. They will get fined and they cannot access even the vital statistics like registered your marriage or certificate of death if one of the member of household is missing or something. They didn't talk about much about the Statistics Act in big data, but just like in Constat, they have. So I visited the statistics office in Japan, and yeah, there are similar building in Statistics Japan, like in Constat. So we cannot access. We can access the big data, leaving our all devices, even the watch, and so we just bring mouse inside the room. But yeah, about the statistics acts, they don't talk much about it. Just for the official statistics.
Okay, maybe Mr. Gabriel can give.
After we visit the statistical big data center in Korea, one delegation from India asked the chapter number 4, the rule is that means data provided by public institutions pursuant to paragraph 2 should not be used for any purpose other than production statistics, nor shall it be provided to other person. But Korea established a big data center and the data can be accessed by the public. How is that? And the answer from the Korea is the data used for production of statistics in that room, but the statistics have two kinds, official and non-official statistics. So it used for production of statistics, but not for official statistics. So it can be used. So that is the reason, and probably because Korea is a conservative country, they have a strong regulation, so it's no problem for this one. But another country is problem to make the data public, and even in Indonesia, we have a regulation to not provide the personal information to another party that we have get from any sources. But for statistical purposes, it can be provided. But the problem is how to, if we have a personal data of person, and how we treat the data. It means that we can ya, nah, misalnya kita punya personal information, kemudian kita mengolahnya untuk agregat. Kalau misalnya tadi undang-undang itu dia berhak dilupakan. Apakah dilupakan untuk diolah untuk production statistik? Nah, kalau saya tangkap mungkin dilupakan untuk digunakan, disalahgunakan. Tapi dilupakan apakah datanya dihapus dan tidak diikutkan di personal di aggregation statistik, sepertinya sih bukan itu, tapi nggak tahu kan. Nah, jadi itu nggak boleh personal information disebar digunakan untuk pihak lain. Tapi apakah personal information yang dikumpulkan, diolah kemudian menjadikan statistik yang dipublish itu personalnya tetap di-keep misalnya. Nah, mungkin itu. Jadi kalau sana personal informasi nggak bisa disebar untuk kepentingan lain. Tapi kalau untuk diolah dan yang keluar itu adalah agregat, nah itu oke. Jadi itu yang mereka pegang. Jadi personal information maksudnya data kita ambil dipindahkan ke beberapa party selama data itu tidak keluar private-nya untuk kepentingan lain, dan yang untuk penghitungan agregat statistik.
Nyangkut KTP-nya hilang.
So, any question or any comment?
Mau komentar?
Can I,
Yeah.
can I comment something about the leave the forget the data, because whether we are agree or not, for example, like when we are browsing in internet, whether we are agree or not to use cookies, for example, there is yes or no, then if I choose no, is it possible that the owner of the website still tracking my search or not? I don't know about something like that. For example, like Google Maps, whether we use or not Google Maps, but we keep Google keep tracking our our daily, yeah. So I'm not sure about the forget the data that they have been collected from us.
Maybe they have the different definition. For example, I'm a citizen of the European Union, and forget my data don't include in aggregate statistic. Well, this is possible.
It's impossible.
Yeah, it's possible.
But it's good data.
If there is no question or no comment, maybe we can finish our discussion. Thank you for all attention. I hope this monthly discussion will be useful for us. Maybe next time I will share the material of the 3 presenters. Okay, thank you very much. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Iya, Pak.
Di email ke Geri ke saya.
Iya.
Saya